introducing computing in the curriculum. So that's something that we do, because unless the young people come into the profession, we will run out of people. And another line that we work is that we work quite closely with the local police and regional police, mainly in terms of education. So less of us become victim. And so the police have more effective use of their limited resources. And for those of you interested to contribute to the branch, interact with us, please drop us a line and we'll be more than happy to welcome you either on the committee or as part of our regular correspondence. So that's the plug. And I think the important thing is that I'm stopping my share now so Dr. Patel can share. It is to learn about this system that is being created. What I really encourage us to think about is that it's not just the system and the technicality, but the fact that Dr. Patel start from a non-IT background, come up with a solution that help in real life and help the work, and it encourage us that while we have the professional practice, there are a lot of simple things that as individual citizens, a little bit of learning, a little bit of effort, we may actually make a real difference. Rather than wait for some big government contract before things can be better. It's probably something that we will encourage, we will learn from, and also to understand the bigger picture of the health IT. So over to you, Dr. Patel.
Thank you, Fan. Yeah, so just very quick introduction. I qualified as a GP in 2005. And since then, I have been working as a general practitioner full-time. Initially, I worked for about 8 years in Harrow, London. And then I moved to another practice in West London, Notting Hill. And I've been working there since 2013, so nearly 9 to 10 years now. I always had a bit of interest in IT, but I never thought that I would progress my career in IT. I was doing a little bit of programming in various languages, including VB.NET, bit of JavaScript, HTML, PHP. I did a little bit of lots of different things. But at one point of time, I realized that I was not making much of a progress. So I decided to join Open University to formalize my understanding and my knowledge of IT. So I joined Open University in 2015 to complete a 6 years part-time degree course in BSc Computing and IT. And it was a part-time course, and that was very helpful because I was still working full-time. So I continued with my employment, and then I side by side continue with the study. And I finished by submitting my final project. That is the health manager we will be talking about. As my final year project, I submitted, and then that is how I completed my degree about just over a year ago. So that is my journey. I would like to share the slides, so just to make it simpler to go through what I have created and the reason why I had to create something that can help. If I can. Okay, so sorry, I'm just clicking some buttons. Hopefully it'll work. Okay, I think is it no, it's sharing. Am I sharing the wrong? Is this the slide or that's not the slide? Is it?
This is the slide, but not the slideshow.
Not the slideshow.
So I think it's the other one.
The other one. Okay, that's the slideshow, I believe. Yeah.
Yep, this is good.
Yeah. So it's the health manager. That's the name of the Java application. It's the Java network application, and that analyze and manage chronic disease patients. So why I need to create this project? So typical NHS general practice maintains a register for various chronic disease patients. So that includes patients having high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma, mental health problems. So each register contains the list of the patients who has got this condition. NHS provides different tools to search for the patients in different registers. So we can search diabetes patients, we can search asthma patients, and currently we have been using a particular system we have been given by the NHS. It's called a System 1. And System 1 has got different searches as well. So as for example, if someone is diabetic, and if you want to know that when was the last time the blood sugar check was done, then we can do a search, and that can tell us that this number of diabetic patients had the blood sugar test done within last 6 months, and these number of patients had it done for more than 6 months, more than 12 months. Depends. We put the numbers and then we get the list of patients. So generally, in a typical general practice, we use the provided system to do the search and to do the necessary work that involves booking patients for various reviews, arranging blood tests, etc. So it is important for us to do these searches and to do the necessary work. That is not only to maintain the reputation of the practice and to maintain the safety of the practice, but it is the part of the chronic disease management and also for the practice income. So it is very important in a typical general practice to do this kind of work. The problem with the current provided system is the various search and the analysis methods currently we use for different diseases. They do not really communicate with each other. So as for example, if one patient has got diabetes and the same patient also has got asthma, then by doing this search, it doesn't tell us instantly that this patient is diabetic and he also has got asthma. The diabetes review has been done about a month ago, but the asthma review has not been done for about a year. So quite often it doesn't communicate with each other, and we often end up doing duplicate work for the same patient. The patient requires multiple appointments. The one appointment requires to do a diabetes check, and then another appointment requires to do the asthma check, and the third appointment requires to do the mental health check. So that we often end up doing same work again and again on one patient. That consumes a lot of time and resources. The other problem we have been facing is the NHS provides a different type of KPIs with different dates. So the current NHS framework that provides that's something known as COF that provides us various dates starting from April to April. So we have to do certain work on certain chronic disease patients from April to April. Diabetic patients, asthma patients, epilepsy patients. We have to do the reviews, the blood check, and whatever is necessary from April to April. Now, since last several years, the local CCG, the clinical commissioning group, who actually mainly maintains the GP contracts with the NHS, they also have been given additional task of doing other extra KPIs with extra work. And that involves the same patients with the same medical conditions, but different things with the different dates. As for example, certain asthma targets, patients having asthma, certain targets needs to be met between September to September, while other targets needs to be met between April to April. So the cough targets are April to April, and the other services, what we call OOH, that is out of hospital services, those targets are between September to September. Certain targets require, in one patient who has got diabetes, certain targets require that this person should have a foot examination done, because one of the risks to patients having diabetes is they develop foot ulcer that can be very serious. So certain targets require that the diabetic patients should have their foot examination done once a year for safety reason, while the other targets do not require foot examination, but they require urine examination to check if there is any protein in the urine, if the diabetes has affected the kidneys of the patient. So different targets for the same patient, for the same condition. So this was causing a lot of problem, duplicating work, and significant amount of time spent by the GP, the senior partner, to, instead of seeing patients, looking into the targets, making sure that various things are done on time, and we continue to maintain the patient safety, the patient safety, the practice reputation, and practice income. So to tackle this problem, I came up with this solution. So it's the Health Manager, is the application I developed that consolidates different searches in one application. So I put all the patients who are under the chronic disease register for individual conditions. These patients, I upload the data on the Health Manager application, and then the Health Manager application gives a visual output to the user telling what needs to be done. And all the chronic disease patients are loaded on the system. So if one patient having diabetes also has other underlying health conditions at the same time, asthma, mental health, or any other condition, then we can instantly tell, and then we can work more effectively. The system is also very simple to use. The user does not need to have any form of medical qualification. It can be used by healthcare assistants. It can be used by GP admin staff with a little training. So that can significantly reduce the amount of time the principal GP spends in looking into the targets. That work can be allocated to other member of staff. So this is a kind of a simple use case diagram. It's handwritten, so slightly difficult to read. So basically, what it says that the existing system, the patient management system, we have been using currently, the system 1. The user goes to the system 1, and if the user is searching for diabetic patients, then just gets the list of the diabetes register, gets an output, a predefined output, the output I have designed on system 1, and it can be shared by multiple GP practices who are using system 1. So that output comes as a chronic disease CSV data. So all the diabetic, as for example, all the diabetic patients having all the data, including the last time when the blood test was done, the urine test was done, the review was done. It comes as a CSV data, and the user imports this CSV data into the application. So once the application, the CSV data has been uploaded on the application, then the user can work on various patients as per the requirement. The system architecture is very straightforward. It is a network client-server application. The main function works on the server that is linked with the SQLite database, and the multiple clients can connect to the server at the same time. The system is currently running on the private GP network, so within our practice. So the member of our practice staff can access the system through their computer at work. So that is how I have designed. So the initial setting up involves setting up the server. So this, once I install the server, it asks me to, it gives me the server IP address that needs to be used for the client setup. I put down the server port number. I've been currently using 4444. The number has not been used by any other software, so it is not a problem. Then the database. So I select a folder on the server where I want to save the SQLite database file, and then I select and save it. If there is no existing database file, then I create by master username and a password. And this shows after I set up the client, the server log tells me the clients that are connected and are disconnected. So this is the server setup. And once the server has started, then I set up the client. So I go on individual computers to set up the client, put down the server IP address. I put down localhost here, but I actually have to put down the IP address of the server. Now the server port number, that is 4444. And I log in as a master user that I originally created. And once I log in, it appears as the home page of the Health Manager. So now I am able to create more users. So I create more regular users according to the practice staff. Once I create the users, I have to set up the system. So the system can take data from the allocated CSV file. So the setting up the system involves, first of all, creating a hierarchy of data, that how it imports the data into various categories. So I first do the data category. So there can be general data category, cardiovascular, respiratory system, mental health. And once I create enough number of data categories, then I create the data names. So what data names we are looking at? So as for example, for data category of diabetes, we have HbA1 date. So that is the date of the blood sugar check. we have retinal screening date. So that's the date all diabetic patients, they need to have their regular retinal screening done. So it comes up as a date as well. EGFR date, that is for the blood test, for the kidney function. BMI date, that's for the weight, when was the last time the diabetic patient's weight was checked. So I create various data names for the specific data category. And the data types would be either a number, whole number, decimal point number, date, or a free text. Now I start creating the various chronic conditions as per the requirement. So for the diabetes, I put down as a KPI name, a diabetes KPI, and the start date and the end dates are important because certain start dates are from April to April and certain dates are from September to September. So this is important because this is how the data is analyzed as per the start date and the end date. Once I create the chronic disease, then I allocate the data names to the specific chronic disease. So for the diabetes KPI, I select the diabetes category and select all the data names that are required for that particular KPI. For the diabetes KPI, there can be data names from other categories, as for example, in general category, we have got weight and height. So I can select the general and then put weight and height as a diabetes KPI requirement as well. And finally, I set the data order as the way I want to see them when the data is displayed. So this is important because some data are more important than the others. So I want to see those data first, as for example, the HbA1 date, that is the blood test date. So for a diabetic patient, that is one of the most important thing, because without blood tests, we wouldn't know that how that patient is doing with the diabetes. Even if that patient is going for foot examination, which is important as well. But if that person does not have a blood check done, then we can't tell what exactly is going on. And this is just an additional thing I created with the same software. That is the task. So for all these chronic disease patients, if certain thing needs to be done, then I put them down on this task as a new task, and the priority, whether high priority, medium or low priority, and whether I should do this task in 10 days, 20 days or something needs to be done after several months. So I put down the days there. So this is something I developed alongside the chronic disease, the data that I was working on. In fact, I use this task on a daily basis to do various referrals and various day-to-day work as well. So now importing the CSV file. So once I create the output CSV file from existing system 1, then I select the file from this page by clicking the import button. And once I click the import button, it gives me a dialog to select a CSV file. So I select a CSV file that I have created with system 1. And when I select the CSV file, it asks me to match the headers. On the left-hand side, these headers are from Health Manager, and on the right-hand side, the headers are from the CSV file. So left-sided headers, as you can see, they have come from the data names that I created after creating data category. So these data names needs to match with the headers from the CSV file. So once I match the data name and the headers from the CSV file, and then I click the OK button, I don't need to match every time because this goes into the database memory. So next time when I import the CSV file, it automatically matches the health manager data names with the CSV file data headers. So once I import, then all the files, all the data from the CSV has been imported on the health manager. I still haven't saved it, but as you can see, the EGFR date, HbA1 date, these are the dates of the blood test, the HbA1, the result of the blood test, urine ACR date, feet examination date, everything has been imported. Then I click the save button, and then it saves the data into the health manager database file. So once they have been saved, then I go to the first tab that says diabetes on the top. So when I click on it, it displays the data with the patient's name and all the information in the text format. So I can see all the dates, all the numbers, and whatever text information is available. Now, this looks quite daunting because quite often it is difficult to see what is missing here and what needs to be done. So when we switch, there is a button on the top that says table setup. So when we click on the table setup and then display data as icons. So system displays the chronic disease patient's data as icons. So now we can see various colors, red, green, and yellow. Red means the things has not been done since the KPI start date. Green means the thing has been done since the KPI start date. And yellow means the thing has been done. The yellow actually, these are the squares. The yellow square is not here on this screenshot, but yellow square means the thing has been done within last 6 months, but not after the KPI date, because you don't want to keep on calling patients within 3 months just because the KPI date has gone from April to May. After 30th of April, from the after the 1st of April, the new year starts. So if you have done, as for example, feet examination of someone in March, you don't want to call that patient again in April after a month to do another feet examination just to tick the box, because that is ticking the box. That's actually not the patient's care. So it tells us that yellow means you don't call the patient now because the patient has already been seen within 6 months' time and there are other priorities to deal with. So this is how the color coding has been designed. Now, regarding patients having more than one condition. So similarly, when you upload diabetes patients, you also upload asthma patients and mental health patients and other chronic disease patients. So once you upload, and now this screen presents showing all the diabetic patients, and the alert flag, that is the pink flag, that tells that this patient also has got other health conditions at the same time. They are not only diabetic, but they also either have got asthma or mental health condition or both. So this is how we can identify those patients having more than one medical condition. Once we come up with this list, then we start working on it. Our healthcare assistant has been using this comment. There is the first tab says add comment. So our healthcare assistant has been using add comment immensely since I deployed the system in our practice. So she selects the patient, call them, whatever they are due for, book an appointment for the blood test or whatever is needed, and then she selects the patient and add a comment that I have done this work today. So that comment appears here. Along with, there is one column that is not visible here. Is the one additional column is it is called last action. So when was the last time you took an action for this particular patient? So it tells that if you have not taken any action, calling the patients or done any work for certain number of days, it appears that this patient has not been called for like 100 days or 150 days. So that appears as a priority. So this is how our healthcare assistant can prioritize that which patient needs urgent attention and which patient we can slightly delay before we contact the patient again. Similarly, the system can also send SMS messages to one or more selected patients. At the moment, I'm not using this functionality, and I have disabled it because the health manager is not currently communicating directly with the system one, which we use at our practice. So this functionality is already there, but I am not currently actively using it. This is another very important functionality, that is export one or more selected data as a CSV. So after we look into the patients and analyze that certain things needs to be done, this is very useful when we need to send a mass SMS, a bulk SMS to a number of patients to do something very, very specific. As for example, to give us a urine sample for diabetic patients having diabetes, they have to provide us a urine sample once in a while to make sure that they are not passing protein in the urine, making sure that they do not have any effect of diabetes on kidneys, making sure that they are on an appropriate medication if the diabetes has affected their kidneys. So we can select one or more patients from here. We export all data as a CSV file, and that data can be directly imported on System 1, because System 1 has got a functionality of importing patients from CSV file. So System 1 identifies the NHS number, and this is how it imports the patients on System 1. So we import the patients, and then System 1 has got functionality of sending bulk SMS messages to all the patients, all selected patients. So this is how this is very, very useful. And if we want to see one particular patient, that what is missing, if the patient has got which other condition along with diabetes, then once we select the patient, on the left-hand side, we can see the patient's detail with the name, date of birth, surname, NHS number. I can directly copy the NHS number and paste it on System 1, so I can open the patient in System 1 to see into what is happening. And it shows me the alert that what is missing, the EGFR is missing, and in the bracket, it tells me when was the last time it was done. So that also tells me the priority when it was done. The priority is also color-coded with red and yellow. And it also, when I select the patient, it also tells me the list of comments that I have done, what I have done for this patient before. If I've sent an SMS, if I've sent a blood, if I've booked an appointment for the blood test, then I can see it here in the comment section. Now I can also see that who has actually worked on this patient, if any GP partner has worked on it, or healthcare assistant has made the comment. So this is how important to follow up a particular patient. Same, we can see the SMS, but we are not currently using it. And finally, the system also has got a search functionality. So this is also very important for certain problem, especially for diabetes. As you can see, my main focus is on diabetes because that is my special interest. And I've been actively looking after 215 diabetic patients using the system. So this functionality tells me about searching specific patients So patients having diabetes, if they already had a blood test done after 1st of April, then their blood report, then the system one will tell me all the green squares that everything has been done. But it doesn't really tell me that if one particular or more than one diabetic patients, their blood test is very high, their blood sugar level is very high, and whether any particular action has been taken for this patient. So then I select the read code, the HbA1, the blood test read code, and I select if the blood test has been done within last 6 weeks or within last 8 weeks. And then from the right-hand side, I select the value. If the value is above 58. So if anyone who had a blood test done within last 8 weeks and whose blood sugar value is above 58, so that patient needs to be reviewed, because above 58 HbA1 is not a good number. And we need to do a medication review. We need to contact the patient, making sure that the patient has been reviewed. So this is how I search the existing patients from the health manager and follow up those particular patients whose diabetes is high, and making sure that they have a medication review and a plan has been made about follow-up blood tests and whatever things needs to be done. So that is the search functionality. And finally, this is also very useful, the bar chart. From the same one of the middle tab, if you click on the middle tab, then you can see all the dates, what has been done and what is pending. So for the diabetes patients data, it can tell me that we have got 210 diabetic patients, and almost more than 50% of the patients had a blood pressure check done. Urine test has been done in a number of patients, but there are more patients who had blood test done compared to the urine test done. So that's something we can discuss in our blood test clinic, that it seems that there are more and more diabetic patients who are coming for the diabetes review and coming for the blood test, but they are not dropping their urine sample on their way out. So that is something that can be flagged with the healthcare assistant or whoever is booking the appointments. Similarly, they are coming for the diabetes review, they are having the blood test, but they are not having the feet examination done, because that number is quite less compared to the blood test numbers. So that also we can flag. And there is a little bit discrepancy between the blood sugar check and the kidney blood test done. So some patients had a kidney blood test done who are diabetic, but they did not have a blood sugar check done. So that also needs to be found out, that why this patient who is diabetic came for a blood test, had a blood test done for kidney function only, and his diabetes was not checked. So this is how this bar chart is very useful to get an overview about what is happening with the chronic disease patients. So that is the core functionality so far. Since I completed the project for the final year project for the Open University, I still continue to work on it. And in fact, I have developed even additional functionalities for the health manager. And that involves mainly a drug monitoring system, which I'm still working on, but it tells us that which patient is on high-risk drug and what monitoring has been done and what monitoring has been pending. So that is very important. I'm currently working on. In the future, I'm planning to work on childhood immunization and the cervical smear monitoring. So we have got different, even on the system one, looking for childhood immunization, the searches are very complex and sometimes it's difficult to interpret. And cervical smears monitoring system is also not directly available on system one, but we have to go on an external website to download the data. So I want to consolidate everything into the health manager, so we can see everything in one place. The next thing I am also currently working on is to get a permission from NHS Digital to gain an access to the existing GP system, that is the System 1 or the EMIS web, from within the health manager. So if I want to enter or enter any data into the patient's record, or if I want to retrieve any data, then I can directly do it without actually going into the System 1. So that is something, it's a big work, but it will take a long time, especially to get permission, but I am working on it. And finally, once I get the permission, and once I submit the system architecture and everything, I want, after getting a communication with the existing system, I want to deploy the system to the NHS, the server on the NHS, on the Amazon cloud. So the other practices, it can be easily used, and I just have to give the client system to the other practices, and then they can directly communicate with the server. So that is, yeah, so that is what I have done so far. Yes, so thank you very much for listening, and I'll go back to Fan.
Well, thank you, Dr. Patel. I think it's a great thing, and thank you for sharing the details and the path as well. We have a couple of messages on chat, but before we answer question, can I invite John from the Open University? You may want to say a few things about the journey and the opportunities from the Open University. So John, if you unmute, then maybe kind of explain some of the things that happens, and then how maybe other practitioners can benefit from using your program. Oh, okay. John haven't got a microphone, but yeah, John is one of the academic colleagues in Open University, and it's great for you to join us. Right, if that is the case, then on the chat, Malcolm asked a question: is this application still local to the practice, or being adopted maybe with enhancement by the NHS IT? So I suppose the last point, Dr. Patel, around moving to Amazon Cloud is part of the answer to it. Can you explain more about timing, or maybe how other practices may get in touch with you and come together and make this work?
Yes, so one of the biggest step would be to get a permission from the NHS Digital to communicate the system with System 1 and with EMIS Web. So that is one of the big tasks, because EMIS Web and System 1, they both work differently. So getting a permission and to make sure the system starts working, communicating with these two existing GP systems. And then the permission obviously would also be to deploy the system, the server on the Amazon cloud. So once the system is on Amazon cloud, I have been working on the functionality of adding multiple GP practices on Health Manager server and allocating multiple users. And every single user nowadays also work for more than one practice. Even if I work in my practice at Westbourne Grove Medical Center, we also have been provided access to the System 1 of other practices, especially after COVID, because we were seeing patients from other practices and we were working in a rota from the COVID clinic. So the Health Manager I already have been currently working on, and I already have implemented up to some extent that one user can access data from multiple different practices once we register the user. So this is how the Health Manager can be used by other practices. Once we get registered them, we allocate a master user for the practice, and the master user can allocate users from his or her practice. The user can use the system for the current practice and other practices. So that is how it can be done.
Thank you. But from a curiosity point of view, from what I understand, you are using your own spare time to create the system and use it. The NHS do not pay for this at all. And when you roll out, then will you be able to get NHS to pay for you providing the services to support other users?
I am completely unexperienced in that part. That's the problem. I would love to get permission from the NHS and to get some help. But currently I haven't explored it. The main problem is I don't know where to start, to be honest, exploring that option.
Okay, so that's interesting. I don't know if other people on the call within the health community may have a way to go forward, but I see a hand from Mark Large. Please go ahead.
Yeah, my camera doesn't seem to be working. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, cool, fine. I also, so I'm a non-exec director in the NHS. I used to be an IT director in the NHS, and I also now sit on the Industrial Advisory Board for the Open University, hence my interest in listening to this topic. I'm clearly very resourceful, and there's a huge amount of work going into this. I think it's going to be interesting getting access to EMIS and System 1. I've worked with both of those systems, and they're intensely competitive about their systems, and also very restrictive about their access to it. So it's not NHS Digital who will give you permission. You'd actually have to work with EMIS and TPP System 1. And that's going to be a major challenge. I've also got questions about information governance, because the whole of the NHS is working on modern systems, have to have role-based access. You only see data to the patients you have a relationship with. So that's another major topic. I'm wondering how you're going to handle that. Plus also, I presume you'll be working through information governance on where the data is stored, because you can't store data outside of the UK for use with systems. And AWS, it's quite interesting in working out where they actually store the data. So there's a whole range of issues there, and sort of touching on the very last thing that Fan mentioned. This is you developing on your own. So if this goes live across multiple GP practices, what support mechanisms will there be for when there are issues, when things don't work? Because as one person, that's going to be pretty tough. So I'm assuming you're thinking about launching off and creating a group of people or a company that will maintain and support this.
Definitely, yeah. So first of all, regarding the information governance, that is one of the biggest challenge. AWS has been providing services to the NHS as far as I'm aware. Currently we have been using third-party applications like AQRX is one of them. They use Amazon Cloud to store patients' data. Amazon also is providing a lot of help about how to store and how to comply with the NHS regulations to store patients' data. So I believe since 2018, NHS is allowing the patient's confidential data to store on Amazon Cloud, as long as the data is stored in the London or the UK-based cloud servers, and very specific America-based cloud servers. Those servers work under the European data protection regulation. So if I use these servers only to store the NHS data, and if I communicate through the secure SSL layers as per the guidance provided by NHS Digital, and with strong password protection and strong system communication, so the data gets protected throughout the data transmission. And maybe the additional functionality, I haven't explored it yet, but the additional security would be the data can only be accessed from the NHS network. So that probably should provide, it's like a GP working from home network by logging into the NHS network first and then communicating with the NHS data. So I believe if all of these hurdles, if I manage to pass, then I can get the permission from the NHS to use the system as a cloud service. And regarding me managing the system on multiple GP practices, as you correctly said, that would be quite challenging, and that would be quite difficult as well. So I haven't actually decided anything yet in that regard, but that is something I might work in the future, but I still don't know how I would do it. Sorry, I'm just moving to another room because my battery is going down. And I've got a charger here. Yeah, I don't want to get disconnected. Yeah, so here we go.
Whilst you're plugging the charger in, I guess the other thing that was clear in my mind, I mean, this is moving data. So TPP System 1 and EMIS will be getting updates to their data on a regular basis. So how are you planning to refresh the data in your SQLite database? Or because one of the things that, as you were talking, I was thinking that it sounds like you're downloading a CSV file. Is that data then permanently in a separate system? So then you've got two systems storing data about the same patient, maybe saying different things. So how does that bit work?
Yeah, so currently I've been using the System 1 tool to download the CSV and then upload on the Health Manager. And when I upload on the Health Manager, on the top of the Health Manager, it says that this data has been uploaded on this particular date by this particular user. So if the user is working on that data, because the data does change on System 1, but it doesn't, especially for the chronic disease, it doesn't change that quickly. It changes maybe in a 2-weekly basis or a monthly basis. But in fact, the user, if want to upload the data more frequently, they can do it even without communicating. Currently, obviously, the system is not communicating with the System 1. But on the top bar, it says that this data is like 2 weeks old. So they can instantly upload the data. So the date changes to the today's date, and then they start working on it. So in the future, if I am able to get this data directly from System 1 without the CSV file, then I can just simply put an add button or something of that sort that imports the data from System 1 and then tells on the top that this data has been uploaded on this particular date. So slightly out of data normally doesn't cause a problem, especially for the chronic disease management. It can cause problem for other things, but for the specific functionality that I'm using, it shouldn't cause the problem. So this is how, this is what I think we can do.
Perfect. Thank you very much. I'll put my hand down and let somebody else have a chance.
Of course.
Unmute. There's another question on chat from Ashok about within the GP practice, how do you keep the data safe? Because the data have the security dimension from transfer, etc. But then once it is in your system, how do you keep them keep the data safe, and is it only viewable within your practice? Okay. I'll just repeat the question on chat that Ashok asked. How is security managed at GP surgery?
Sorry, you're on mute. I think I can't hear you.
I think I've unmuted. Sorry, I may need help.
I can hear you. Okay.
Sure.
We can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me? It's Ashok here.
Ashok, please go ahead.
Okay. The question is about security at two levels, at GP surgery and at central server level. I assume it's the AWS, which is the central server. How do you manage security at GP surgery and at AWS level? And who has access to the data you created?
So with the AWS level, once the server has been installed, it can only be accessed through an SSL channel with the user's name and a password. This is how it will be secured on the AWS level. And from the client side, from the GP practices, the system will be installed on individual computers with a username and a password. And the users are created by the master user. So in the passwords, initially they are allocated, and then the user has to change the password. And we can implement the NHS requirement about the password as well, that how frequently the password needs to be changed. So this is how, even if someone has got an access on the client systems, they cannot log into the system. It's like exactly the same as system one. They need a username and a password. Who can access the data? Only valid users with a username and a password can access the data. And a user can only access the data from their practice. Even if on AWS, there would be data from multiple different practices, user can only access the data because the user has been allocated the practice. So the user cannot access the data from other practices. So this is how the patient's confidentiality and the data can be secured.
Okay, just a follow-up question. Is there a two-level authentication? And if a GP is working from home, would he be able to access the data?
Whenever a GP is working from home, the GP is provided a laptop, the NHS laptop, to work. So that NHS laptop should have the health manager installed. And once the health manager is installed, and the additional security would be if it is available, the AWS connection can only be done through the NHS network. So the GP working from home, working on NHS laptop, gets connected with the NHS network first, and then able to log in with the provided username and a password. So exactly the same security applies as working in a practice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. just scanning for questions. For now, Malcolm have a follow-up question regarding security. Maybe Malcolm, if you go ahead and unmute.
Yeah. Yes, just querying what type of printout may be used by the practice staff and what type of NDAs may already exist or need to be enhanced regarding secure destruction of the data once it has been analysed and anything put back into the system.
After analyzing the patient's data.
Yep. If they do printouts, I'm not sure whether that is needed or forbidden.
The printouts generally are not needed, but if they are needed, every staff member is aware that the printout should not be laid on the desk. They should be shredded after the work has been done. So the system normally doesn't require any printout because all the CSV files and everything are directly imported and saved within the system. Similarly, when the data is exported as a CSV, they are imported in the system one. Everything is digital. So generally, while working on the chronic disease patients, the printout is not needed. But if someone is not using system, if someone is not using the health manager, and if they want a list of patients to work on, then the same rule applies. If we give them a printout from system one, then the same rule applies that they look after the list. They don't take the list away from the practice. They put the list in a secure place and shred them as soon as the work is done. So the same rule applies if someone is getting any printout from health manager. They have to look into all the clinical governance issues and making sure that that printout is not laid unattended in unsecured place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, there's no further question at this point. A general point for me, Dr. Patel, in going forward, I suppose part of our conversation earlier is maybe interest to form other like-minded colleagues who may be supporting the work going forward. Do you have any mechanism or LinkedIn or Facebook or within the NHS structure to create a community that people who like to work with you going further can be in contact with you?
I haven't got any system, but I can create a system with some guidance, I believe.
Yes, I'm just thinking, well, I'm not in the medical domain. Within the BCS, there are a number of specialist groups. Some of the colleagues may be in this meeting and have interest, and whether within those infrastructure, whether something can be created. So it's trying to perhaps help to make your life going forward easier, or whether it is something within the NHS community that these mechanisms exist, then we'll be more than happy to stay in touch, whether we can get any BCS communication through press release and other information to bring further awareness to the good work that you are doing. So be more than happy to see how on the practical level we can help you to move forward.
Definitely, yeah. No, thank you very much. Yeah, so that's something I would be looking forward to.
Okay, Mary. Yes, with PHCSG, I suppose there's primary health care within the BCS, and of course, part of your prize include a membership support for joining the BCS. So hopefully you have time to exercise that, and maybe then through Mary's specialist group that can be one focus to go forward, that would be good.
Definitely, yes. So that's something I think that's a good idea. Yes.
Great. So I know it's been a long day for you, having been working full day and spending the evening with us. So if there are no further questions, I'd like to invite everybody to thank Dr. Patel for his time and this really good piece of work ongoing. And we look forward to see the work going forward and be happy to stay in touch. And in there's any way that us non-medical professional can contribute, please do let us know. So can we thank Dr. Patel in the usual way, whether unmute and clap or whether virtually clap? So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for attending. Listen to me.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you.